events of Christ. His crucifixion, his so-called deityship, or being a son of God, and so on and so forth. Historically, when you go and look into what people believed, people didn't believe what you think the Orthodox people believe. There are people who believed in two gods, and they were Christians. You've read Bart Ehrman's book. I heard you say talking about Bart Ehrman. Have you read?
All I know is that is what he said about.
Have you read his book called Lost Christianities?
I haven't actually read any of his books. I just heard about the thing I mentioned. I think it was a quote that he said. That's what.
So read his book Lost Christianities, because you're familiar with Bart Ehrman as a scholar, agnostic scholar, and he will tell you how there were so many Christianities. There was no Orthodox Christianity until much later. So all these proto-Orthodox and hetero-Orthodox Christianities, they're divergent in their views about who Christ is. Whether there's one God, two gods, three gods, and all this multitude of belief system in terms of who the person of Christ is. So were there people, were they themselves deceived? Were the Jewish people deceived that he was not the Messiah for all these years until today? Did God deceive them?
It's a possibility.
Did God deceive Jewish people that God sent his own son, also God, and he deceived the Jewish people till today in thinking that he's not?
I don't know. I don't know exactly if these Gnostic groups are correct.
Jewish people today, do they believe Jesus is God?
They don't even believe Jesus is a prophet.
Now, do they believe he's God?
I believe he is God, yes.
Do the Jewish people today, in their majority, believe Jesus is God?
No, they don't believe in him.
Right. So God deceived them? According to your logic, your consistent logic, because you have to be consistent and applied on all broad, were they deceived by God?
When they didn't want to follow him. A lot of them did, it says in the Bible, but
I'm not talking about those who did. I'm talking about those who don't. A majority of them. Millions of them. Were they deceived by God, according to your logic?
I don't know, and I need to review.
But if you're going to apply logical standards and saying, because the Quran makes it that it appeared to them, so the Quran is deceiving, and until 600 years later, God deceived them. I'm saying apply that logic throughout, for all people. And you will see that you have a logical principle in which God deceived the Jewish people. All of them. Apart from few individuals who are called the Messianic Jews who accepted him. So if you consider that God deceived, then you believe God is a deceiver.
I think the problem is that it wasn't all the Jews who saw Jesus rise from the dead. It was only a handful that became Christians.
500.
So is the belief in Christ's deityship dependent on people seeing him?
Yeah, they don't need the evidence to know he was the Messiah.
Is it dependent on people seeing him crucified?
Is it dependent on? Not exactly. But
exactly not, because Paul didn't meet him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you take the words of Paul.
He had a vision of him, though.
But
That was his evidence.
look, it's a dream. Vision is not a physical seeing. So applying consistency again.
But you could say both were. Some could say that basically all the people who saw Jesus rise from the dead was a delusion, and some could use that logic to apply to Paul too.
No, I'm saying if you apply a standard in which people have to see, because you're saying some people only saw what Jesus went through and they believed in him, and those who did not, that's why they didn't believe. If that was the case, then you should say, like all the other people who didn't see Jesus, why would they believe or not believe? It doesn't make sense. So I'm coming back to you again. You have to come back to a common agreement in our discussion here. Do you agree that God deceived, in your understanding, the Jewish people in making them believe that Jesus was not God?
In making them believe, I have no idea.
Fair. Okay, no problem. Then equally, you should say about. Equally, could say about.
Our God will never say that. Sorry, Mansur. Sorry.
I don't believe Allah necessarily, or basically, I think this has changed because he said Allah didn't actually make it appear. So my original belief was Allah basically just made it seem as if Jesus was crucified to save him, which I think was the right thing to do.
But you're going against the text. We have to have our interpretation pinned on the textual aspect of this event. If the text doesn't support our view, we cannot say this is what the Quranic text says. The Quranic text doesn't say God is deceiving them and making it appear. It simply says it appeared to them so. If it appears to you over there, this person is the Prince of Uganda, it's your fault. God is not making that appearing.
Mansur.
Do you understand?
We understand. If I may interject, yes, you're very right in this, but I believe if you go lower down, it says, but they makar, right? The word makar is used
Where is it used?
plans, but
Yeah.
Allah is the best of planners.
What's wrong with God being the best of planners? Do you disagree?
Yeah, but in context, it's deceiving.
No.
If you read,
Of course
because
not.
they deceive,
No.
and Allah is the best of
Of course not.
So it,
They are planning.
What
And-
is the plan is though?
Okay.
Because it's in conjunction with made it appear. You understand? It comes right after it, so they're connected. You
Where?
understand, brother?
Where,
When it
where does he appear like
after
this?
it says it made it appear to them as if it was Jesus, it says because they planned or deceived. How you
Would
wanna
you
put
mind?
it.
Would you mind sharing that?
They
Where
also-
it
yeah,
says
of course.
that?
Planned.
Let's have a look.
They planned,
Let's have a
but
look.
God planned also that God is the best of planners.
Okay.
It's right after it.
Let's have a look,
Can you
and
please
then
bring this, because I don't know exactly what's right. But I've read it before, I apologize. It's a short one.
he can bring it up. He can bring it up. But I want to talk about this address. If someone is making a plan against a messenger,
Yeah.
the way to God, for God, to thwart, to prevent, to dismantle this plan is by what? To get rid of this plan. So if you call that deception, then you have very low estimation of God.
No.
God,
You have to read in context, right?
let me explain to you. Right. Someone is planning to kill a messenger of God. That's their plan.
Okay.
God's plan is to overthrow this plan. Is that overthrowing plan a deception?
In the way you put it, no.
Exactly.
But
so
if
God,
you read, was it Surah Al-Maryam? Which one was it?
where does it say that? No, this is what you're talking about. So where does it say what you're talking about? Yeah. So while he's finding, so you talked about
It was
one
only
aspect.
meant to appear, that's right.
While
Even though we
we're
argue.
talking about the crucifixion, historically we know there are many Christians didn't believe in crucifixion, which you're going to go and search about it. I've given you the name of 2 church fathers. I've given you the book by Bert Ehrman to read about the lost Christianities, and you're going to expand to learn about the historical event about this issue and the people who believe not in the crucifixion of Jesus before Islam. Islam didn't introduce anything. This was the reality, and people documented it. And church fathers were so concerned they had to write that be aware, be careful about these people. They're heretics. You don't write something
It's makar.
when if it's not prominent within the community, nothing to be worried about. So the belief was well spread, widespread, well known. The church fathers was really concerned that if this continues, then we will have probably perhaps the majority of the Christians will not believe in the physical crucifixion of Jesus. Yeah, that's why they were writing against heretical sects. So, is there anything else
They tried.
in the Islamic theology, in the Islamic teaching, that you think you have a major obstacle in accepting Islam?
Not at the top of my head, but that doesn't mean that. Not that I can think of now.
I don't remember
I'm
exactly.
going
Because I made notes and stuff like that.
Kind of, do you not mind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you not mind? But thank you for this discussion.
Take care.
It's probably been none of the most thought-provoking ones for me. Thank you.
Take care. Take care.
Did you get your answer?